Welcome back into another episode of Red Zone Talk. I'm Owen Burke. He's Tim Hunt. We've got some football to talk about, folks. I'm repping every one of my favorite teams but my NFL team because, I just didn't want to spoil what we were talking about. So
Yeah.
Tim's got the old Syracuse hoodie on. Is that the short sleeve one?
Yes.
The Belichick Syracuse hoodie. An absolute power move. We're just going to dive right into this. Obviously, we got some trades to talk about, some not trades, but trade candidates to talk about as well. So we're going to dive right into the move of the week, the one we didn't get to, right? We talked about Devontae Adams. We talked about Amari Cooper. After we record, DeAndre Hopkins is now officially a Kansas City Chief. First reactions, first thoughts. What are you thinking?
It's interesting. I like how little they gave up and how low commitment is.
Yeah.
That was my initial thought. I still think they need to go out and try to get some kind of volume guy. I don't know if that's like Hunter Renfrow off the street or you know what I mean? I'm not really sure, but D-Hop is at least an interesting fix because with everybody that's hurt and that hasn't been played, they feel like they don't have a volume guy still.
Yeah. I mean, you still have Kelsey there, just not really producing. I think he's fantasy tied to number 17. He just hasn't. Yeah. He's been getting doubled. Rashee Rice went down, and defense was like, all right, we stopped this guy. And as long as we don't let Xavier Worthy go over the top, we're perfectly fine here, right? And this is where I would have loved to see Andy Reid, this is where Andy Reid needs to kind of make the money, and the play calls need to be crazy. I need Xavier Worthy to be getting the ball within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage on either side and let him go do something. Let Kelsey get out into space. So I've been kind of disappointed with that, but at the same time, Kareem Hunt comes off the couch, Juju Smith-Schuster off the practice squad. They both went for 100 yards in their first game. So I like the trade because, again, people are like, oh, it's DeAndre Hopkins. It's DeAndre Hopkins at age, 32. He went for 1,000 yards last year. It was just over. I think it was 1,009, but still – 1,000-yard receiver with a quarterback play that was in Tennessee last year is still a pretty damn good accomplishment in my mind. So, again, they didn't give up much. I laughed when I saw why they didn't try to go after Cooper Kupp or anybody better, and it said because they didn't want to take on a ton of salary, but they also didn't want to give up a high draft pick. And I was like, well, it's not how that works. You're going to have to do one or the other. You give up a high pick and somebody eats the money for you, or you give up a low pick and you got to eat the money. So they found the middle ground. The Titans GM is infinitely on my shit list because they blocked Derrick Henry to Baltimore at the deadline last year. And, the Chiefs are struggling and they're just handing out DeAndre Hopkins for a bag of chips and a ticket to the movies. So I like the deal for Kansas City. I don't know why Hunter Renfrow hasn't been picked up. You know me, I'm a Hunter Renfrow truther. I don't think he's, a top 10 guy in the league by any stretch, but you can't tell me he's not better than Sky Moore. And personally, I want to take him over Juju. I do and I think that's the type of guy that would really benefit this offense right now. He's not a volume guy, but they need guys that are just going to get in and out of routes and just be open, right? Cooper Kupp would have been a crazy, crazy get for them had they been able to pull that deal off. Because I think they just need some stability and some rhythm and timing, right? It's not there with Kelsey. It's going to take a while for D-Hop, and even then, he's not that type of guy. So they've still got to maneuver some things around. Sky Moore's on the IR now, so you're just running out of bodies at the receiver position at this point.
Michael Thomas is still a free agent.
So. Yeah, there are some moves to be made.
There must be a reason he's a free agent. He's only 31. I don't know what the holdup is. I wonder if he's not fully healthy or something. But
I mean, that would be my guess, just because that's been the standard for the last 3 years for him at this point.
Yeah.
He sold the rest of his career to the devil for that one, catch record season with Drew Brees before he went out. So,
but really, overall, I don't have a big issue with this deal, right?
No,
it's not a bad price to pay. It's probably market value. Titans were getting very little out of them. You never know what's going to revitalize somebody's career.
Yep.
Do I think out of the 3 moves that we've seen, right? We've seen Amari Cooper, we've seen Devontae Adams, and now DeAndre Hopkins. I'd probably put him my second favorite move.
That's where I would do.
Is probably where I'd put him. I wish, if I'm a Chiefs fan, I wish we got Amari Cooper instead who's been productive, even though the Browns haven't been able to field a quarterback in a while.
Yep.
But that price tag was a little bit heavier for that. But yeah, I don't hate this move. This maybe will bring a fire back to DeAndre Hopkins now that he's playing meaningful football. So
That's what you hope. And again, yeah, like you said, the Chiefs don't give up a ton. You get a talented guy on the outside. Again, at this point, like they just need bodies out there at receivers. So whether it's Michael Thomas, Hunter Renfro, they want to give Kadarius Toney another shot. Like they're gonna have to find somebody because they're
is he
just
on a
running out of
roster?
healthy. I don't believe so. So again, and I understand the stigma around there, and he was not quiet off the field about his time in Kansas City the first time through. But it's guys like that where they already they know the offense. I mean, I would hope that Kadarius Toney at least knows the offense. I feel like his problems were more hand related than being in the right spot related. Like if that guy wants to revitalize his career, I'm calling Andy Reid right now, begging for my job back. Like that's where.
I don't know if he's on the active roster.
For who? Kansas City?
I'll give you a guess. It is in the AFC.
It is in the AFC?
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it's going to be some black hole team. I want to say like Cleveland.
Yeah, that's where he's at. He's in
Cleveland. Is it Cleveland? I was like, what team is just like that desperate?
Okay. He's a practice squad. Okay. He's on the practice squad. I was like, man, that's wild. How is he not starting? How is he not active for the Browns? Like, that's so wild to me that he's fallen that far out of grace. Like, it's just insanity.
Where they are riding with, I think, former fourth rounder Cedric Tillman. Did you forget Elijah Moore's there? Elijah Moore's in the receiver room, and Jerry Jeudy has to play because they gave him $94 million. So
he's wide receiver 1.
Yeah,
actually.
It's time for Jerry Jeudy to go make his money. Now that he has a quarterback that hopefully can get him the ball too. So
man, I miss the old days of Elijah Moore. Wait for Elijah Moore, man. He's gonna pop off.
Oh my God, waited for years.
He was gonna be one of those guys that it's like, oh, this guy's gonna be a difference maker.
Yeah, it's one of those like you'll see fan accounts for like not tweeting until Elijah Moore scores a touchdown, and then like 4 years later, it's like somebody finally getting out of the locked cage, and he's like, I did it. We're fine. We're back. But that guy's still waiting. That guy's still locked up in the cage.
Yeah, he hasn't caught any this year. So
yeah, that surprised me at all.
That's wild to me that he's not on that active. You just look at that roster and you'd be like, oh yeah, he could definitely play on that roster.
I would take Kadarius Toney in Baltimore in a fucking heartbeat. I can tell you that. Like, we don't need a receiver, but like again, like I just don't believe that there's not a creative coach. And again, if the off the field stuff, because remember he was on Instagram talking about the Chiefs and everything. If that stuff's the hold up, that makes perfect sense. Because again, you don't want a guy that's on a bounce back or going to be on a low end role until he proves himself to be a distraction. But like, if that stuff's all cleaned up, man, like I know that it's been 3-4 years at this point. You kick on that Florida tape, man. He can play. He's got to find a spot somewhere.
They could go sign him. I think on the practice squad you can sign somebody to your active.
Yeah, you can poach him right off. I'm pretty sure. So we'll see. I mean, I'd be surprised to see the Chiefs make that move at this point. I think it's going to take another injury.
Yeah, I don't think they will either.
Like, yeah, even Xavier Worthy goes down. I still don't know if they're that desperate to go back to that well. As much as I think it's really not that bad of a move.
The craziest thing to me is how good the free agent class of wide receivers is next year. So
really,
yeah,
give me some notable names if you got them.
Let's just rip off the top guys. Stephon Diggs is a free agent. T. Higgins obviously will be freed. Keenan Allen, which isn't as big of a name maybe as it once was, but
still.
Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin, Brandon Cooks, DeAndre Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Williams. So you got some names out there.
There's some veteran talent there for sure. I think D-Hop probably plays himself into another contract in Kansas City if he can play well down the stretch here.
He's 32.
I mean, you're hoping that Hollywood was going to be that guy that could play his way into another contract with them, but he's on a 1-year deal and he won't play until the AFC title game at best, probably. So
yeah, Yeah.
And that's if they make it. So it's going to be. That's what I've had some Chiefs fans ask me, like, do you think Hollywood would play in the AFC title game? And I was like, it's one of those things where if they were to limp all the way there, right, or the season makes a miraculous turnaround, do you add a guy that has not played a single snap back? Like, I don't know if
Back
it's an
in.
ad. Yeah, to be like, oh, here's a guy who has literally not played a snap for us all season long. His first snaps are going to be in the AFC title game. Like, I just don't know if that's super beneficial at that point,
That's a great question. I would imagine you would want to.
You would want to. It comes down to how much he's in the building and still being an active member of the Kansas City Chiefs on a 1-year deal while out for essentially the entire season. So,
Yeah, that's
just
true.
one of those things.
Yeah, you look at the Chiefs wide receiver. You have Juju Smith. Juju is out. Sky
Yep.
Moore is on IR.
Yep.
Rasheed Rice is on IR. Hollywood's
Yep.
on IR.
Yep.
They've got 4 starting wide receivers all out on IR.
Yeah. Like I said, they just need a pulse in that receiver room at this point. That's why I would assume that another move has to be coming, because how many active do they have listed? Like, how many are going to be out there tomorrow on Sunday?
They have DeAndre Hopkins, Justin Watson,
Xavier Worthy.
McCole Hardman,
Okay. I
Montrell
thought.
Washington.
Don't know that name. That's
I don't
scary.
but 5 active wide receivers, but then they have 4 tight ends active.
Yeah, and I know McColl's been banged up as of late too. So, you're dangerously close to me to go in with 5 receivers when one of them is coming off of an injury. So I think they need to make another move there. We'll see if Brett Veach will pull the trigger or not, if it's going to be a big move or just another free agent signing.
Season. Okay. Jared Wiley's an active tight end for him. He was pretty
He's
good.
active?
Yeah, he's on the active roster.
He's one of those guys that I really feel like can unlock this offense to him. He's a freak athlete. Was he like 6'7"? He's a monster. And to me, receivers are banged up. I'm going 2 tight ends. And I don't know how much if he knows the playbook that well to be out there all the time, but I would put him out there with Kelsey. And I think that to me is like a really game breaking type set if he can realize that potential.
He is a catch this year. Only 1 though. He's tight end 3 right now. So
yeah, with Noah Gray as their 2.
Yeah,
Noah Gray's been reliable.
I honestly thought he was more of a wide receiver than he was a tight end. Does he block at all? I don't think he does.
I don't think many of the guys in Kansas City do, truthfully.
Yeah,
they're the inverse of Baltimore. Where all 3 of our guys block and catch. All 3 of their guys catch and then block.
Yeah, that's fair.
You need a little bit of mixture in the tight end room.
All right, let's talk about Tua. Tua's coming back. He's gonna play. He's cleared. I've said my piece. He's not a fan. He said what he said about the Guardian caps, which I respect that he understands the risks. He's going out there, risking his body for everything, but I don't know. I really don't like this.
Yeah, I'm not a super huge fan of it either. I really don't mind him not wearing the Guardian cap either. It's a personal decision.
Yeah.
You know exactly what you're signing up for. If there's anybody that knows the health risks that come with playing with football in general, on top of what each individual's risks are while playing the game, he knows them better than anybody does. And I don't have an issue with him not wearing the Guardian cap. I do have an issue with how he answered the question.
Yeah, that's more of what I want.
Personal choice. I'm like, that is a perfectly valid question. You're not allowed to get upset about that.
Right. The state that he's been in, yeah. The last thing you want to hear is well, it's a personal choice and I really don't want to hear anything else about it. It's you are the front man for concussions right now.
Yeah.
People are talking about concussions, they're talking about you. So
yep.
The fact you're not willing to, for pride or whatever, to not wear it or not talk about it is pretty crazy to me.
Yeah, to not talk, he just shot it personal choice. Just shot it down like it was just a stupid question. I'm like, that is a very valid question. If you want to say, it's just personal choice, I don't want to. Cool. It was the tone, really, where he's like, personal choice, move on, next question. You're like, that is you cannot be upset about that. That is a very valid question after what we've seen from you in prime time.
Yeah. I'm hopeful. I'm praying that he stays safe and doesn't get hurt again. But It just scares me. I can't believe it's being allowed to happen, to be honest with you.
I agree. I figured the league would step in at least to be like, hey man, you gotta fucking Guardian cap up at least
Hmm.
because, or at least change your helmet type because there's been, the league does all these studies all year long on, what helmet's the safest, right? I'm seeing TikToks left and right. Certain brands are dominating for not only the most sold helmet, but to be the safest because at the end of the day, that's going to be the one that gets worn all the time. He's still wearing that same 808 Speed Flex that he's been wearing since he came into the league, which was Riddell's most recent like uh innovation in concussion prevention. But like the Visix one that Patrick Mahomes wears, has he been wearing the Visix this year?
Yeah, I was like,
Okay.
I swear he switched to the Visix because him and Holmes have been big on it, but he does. He wears the Visix. Yeah.
Okay. That's good news because that is, I will tell you, like, I've looked into that as well. Like, research shows that is the best helmet for preventing concussions. And that's another thing that terrifies me because he is wearing the most cutting edge technology for preventing concussions every week, snap in, snap out. And he has been brutalized by concussions so far at this point. So it's like, you're wearing the best thing we got and you're still getting hurt like this. It's time to step it up, right? Throw the Guardian cap on there. Like,
Yeah. Well, and the Visix has come out to be more effective against concussions than even the Guardian Cap has.
yeah,
So that is that's a solid, but it's an impressive list of who wears the Visix.
yeah.
I'm shocked that they probably don't want to on this list. Their big one is George Kittle, Joey Bosa, Russell Wilson, Nick Bosa. Uh, they have Joey Bosa listed twice in here. That's funny.
Love
Uh,
that.
I was like, man, did I not just say Joey Bosa? I did. Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson. Oh, they have Patrick Mahomes listed twice too. That's cool. I wonder why that is. Um, oh, it's just articles because Mahomes switched to the 2 this year. That's why.
Yeah, a lot of quarterbacks and a lot of edge rushers seems to be wearing those a lot, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, I'd be shocked hearing about the next 2 to 3 years if Visix keeps doing what they're doing to not see that helmet just all up and down the offensive line because they're making position specific helmets. Right, you'll see Nick Bosa and George Kittle. I think wear like their trench version that has that even the forehead of it's even bigger to try to give more padding and cushion for those helmet to helmet hits, which happen a lot when you're blocking or trying to defeat blocks. So I'm glad that Tua is wearing that. I think that is a step in the right direction. But again, it scares me that you're wearing the best technology we've got and you're still being plagued by this injury. There's not much more that we can do as far as a protection standpoint at this point.
Yeah, yeah, and the Visic's cool because they build it around your head.
Yeah.
Padding is like designed based on your head shape and everything. It's not like a generic helmet that they throw on there.
Yeah,
So
they got to throw it on and then pump the pads up and decrease it. Like it is 3D printed to fit your head specifically. So,
yeah, which is interesting. So,
yeah.
but yeah, once you said that, I was like, man, I swear he switched to that.
I
So
thought he did, but then I was like, I feel like I remember seeing a clip of him in Speed Flick still, but he's wearing it. That's all that matters.
it's true. Dang, they're $900 if you buy them off market. That's insane.
Damn.
I mean, it's not surprising. I mean, I'm sure like I'm so old. I remember when the Revolutions were cool.
Yeah, the one that Peyton Manning wore.
Yeah, like
That
when
old
Peyton Manning
TV.
wore the Revolution, you're like, dang, that's cool. And then they came
Larry
out with
Fitz
yeah,
rocking the Revolutions.
and then what was they came out with the Rev was it the Revo Speed?
Yeah, you had the Revo Speed, and then they went to the Speed Flex, which that was the big thing. Like probably right when I was coming out of high school into college, where it's like, did you get the Speed Flex? Like
Mm-hmm.
every kid in high school wanted
Yeah,
Speed
okay,
Flex.
because the Speed was like what I think of like Pat White and Steve Slayton at West Virginia wore those.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of.
I don't know if any like NFL players, notable NFL players.
I want to say Baker came in wearing an 808 Revo Speed with Cleveland.
Oh, I bet you did.
Uh,
That would have been the right timeline.
Let me look at his rookie year. I feel
I
like
don't
that's where.
know. on the new Maddens, if you can remember how you could pick your helmet in the old Maddens, and it was like you were like, "Oh, that's a sick helmet."
Yeah. You still can.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I don't know. I don't have the new Madden, so
Yeah, I don't have it either. It's in college football. It's been in them the last. I hate how the menu works for it because you have a one to pick your helmet and then one to pick your face masks, but they just dump all the face masks into one screen. So you have to sift through every face mask for every helmet to find which one you want for the helmet that you're currently wearing. Super annoying, but
dang.
yeah, there's a lot
What?
of face mask options.
EA did a bad job at something? No way. Get out of here,
Whoa!
man.
Imagine that.
No
It's been
way.
that's how the game's been for picking helmets for 4 years, and players have been complaining about it. And guess what? Madden 26, it's still gonna be there.
I was at Vintage Stock today actually, and I picked up a NCAA Football 10.
Fuck yeah!
My goal with my PS2 collection is to have every Madden and NCAA football that came out for it.
That's fucking sick. You remember when I picked up the Madden 05 at Goodwill in Wichita? Got the Ray Lewis on the cover.
Ray Lewis on the cover, yeah.
Had that for the original Xbox back in the day, but I was not mindful enough to keep the cover in any decent shape or keep it at all. So now I've got the Funko Pops for Ray Lewis and Lamar Jackson with both their corresponding Madden covers behind it. So
This is not my original PS2, but whoever has my original PS2, I wrote the number, like I wrote in Sharpie, like my the memory card. I wrote like 1, 2, 3, 4 on there, and every cover I took the cover out and wrote 1. So if I was playing that game, I knew to put memory card 1 in.
that's
And
smart.
like as a kid, that was great because I was like, oh, I want to play this. I know it's on memory card 1.
That's genius, actually.
Because I used to hate that you'd start up, it'd be like no
Fucking
save detected, and then you have to turn it off, put a different memory. Like it drove me insane.
yeah.
But it ruined every cover I had because it just had, and I don't,
What?
not a lot of people know, but my handwriting is bad. It's
Yeah.
like if there was a handwriting like list in the country, I would be in the bottom 10 people in the country probably.
Yeah.
Like that's how bad my handwriting is. Like, so it just looked horrible everywhere, and people are like, "What
Yeah.
number is this?" And it's like, "Oh, that's 2. Just trust me."
I can confirm because I was the designated like Tim handwriter reading at Dick's Sporting Goods there for a while. Which somebody was like, "Hey, I can't fucking read what this bike form says." I'm like, "Hold, I bet I know whose handwriting it is. You can't read. Give me a second. I'll be right there."
I know who wrote that sucker.
I know who wrote it, and I could probably transcribe 80% of it.
We were at work the other day, and I like took a bunch of notes down on something, and I had it, and I was reading it, and I was helping somebody else out, so I had my notes there on their computer, and I was like reading it and helping them write something up, and they're like, "You can read that? That means something to you?" I was like, "Yeah," because they saw me like reading off of it, and they're like, "You can read that at all?" It's like,
That's an
yeah,
English language?
I can, believe it or not. I can understand what I write, but I'm maybe the only person on earth.
That's so great. I love that.
All right, let's talk about Cooper Cup trade.
Yeah.
So here's the thing I find the most interesting is, the Rams weren't shopping Cup. Apparently, they were accepting phone calls on him, and the expectation was a second.
Yep.
In my mind, that means they weren't willing to trade Cooper Cup.
Yeah. Most likely.
If you look at the value of what was going around, you talked about Michael Thomas kind of being a one-hit wonder. That's the summary of Cooper Kupp's career for the most part.
Currently, it is, yeah.
He's had one great year and then been disappointing through the rest. I just don't see how you would see the value of a second rounder for him.
I think, again, yeah, it's one of those things where they didn't want to turn people down just to see if somebody would come up to that ridiculous price point. And you got to admit, like, there were some teams that probably thought about it. Maybe not thought about it, but, to the point where the Rams were like, people are desperate enough. Like, where if the market heats up, somebody might give up a second for him. Like, I would not have been surprised. I don't think it would have been a bad move for Kansas City to make. Because I do bet on Cooper Kupp's talent going forward. I think it's just been injuries since the Triple Crown season that have really slowed him down. So I wouldn't have been – I think that would have been a good move for Kansas City, truthfully, because they would have eaten some of the money to where, Kansas City's not footing the whole bill while giving up a second-round pick. And that helps you win right now. And I think going forward, makes you real dangerous next year. Rashee Rice, Cooper Kupp, Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy. Bring Hollywood back if you want to. And, I mean, you're running. And I think also another thing that would be very underrated for Cooper Kupp at this point, like he's not 36 on his way out the door, but
No.
older guy still could be a very good mentor. Like if I have a guy that's not like for Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman, I would want nothing more than them to be in a receiver room with Cooper Kupp for 2 to 3 years. I think that would be so beneficial to so many young receivers, especially guys that rely on being a route technician to get open, to be in the film room with that guy. That would be huge. I mean, it's a guy who's had to work for everything in his career, 4th round pick, to now having Matt Stafford winning a Super Bowl. I would love to have Cooper Kupp in my locker room, but again, the second is a steep price. It's something that only pure contenders are going to go for.
And the other problem is you have, I think, 2 years left on his deal.
Yeah.
So you're not just keeping Cooper. Like, he's clearly wide receiver 2 on his own team right now. So you'd be keeping him. It'd be an investment. It wouldn't just be a, DeAndre Hopkins is a one and done guy. I'm trying to find his contract now. It'd be a guy that you're planning on keeping for. You could maybe cut him after a season. It's actually 3 years. Wow, you got this season and then 2 more.
Wow, good.
His dead cap money is pretty bad, except for the last year. 22 if he were to get cut this year. Or after this season, it'd be $22 million. Which is a lot.
Yeah, it is. I'm curious to see if somebody makes that phone call. Like, again, one of the contenders gets in a bad way. I'm stuck on whether I feel like Baltimore needs another receiver or not. Yeah. I lean towards no, because I really have a lot of faith in the 2 young guys in Flowers and Bateman. And Aguilar, I know it's a laughable sentence after everything that happened in Philly and his known reputation on the internet to say that Nelson Aguilar is my 3rd receiver and I'm comfortable with that. But he has been steady and available for the Ravens his entire time. And I can't – because I remember all last year, my buddy Shay's like, dude, Nelson Aguilar is playing really good football. And I'm just like, that is such a – I don't want that sentence associated with my team. And Nelson Aguilar is a difference maker.
When he was in New England, that's how I always felt. I was like, oh, my God, this guy is so good. And he'll have a game where you're like, wow. And then he'll have 4 games where you're like, is Nelson Aguilar still on this team?
Was he playing?
Was he playing? What happened to this guy?
Yeah.
That's always been his thing. If we're going to talk about Nelson Aguilar, it always makes me think of the meme or the guy on the news in Philly. She was hugging babies, we was catching them, unlike Aguilar.
Aguilar. Like,
is like the best of all time.
Yeah, like that's his reputation. So for me to be like, I'm comfortable with Nelson Aguilar as my 3rd receiver, sounds like a joke of a statement. But he's been damn reliable for Baltimore in his time there. So, but Bateman or Flowers goes down, and I think Baltimore is hurting in a real way. But they have the tight ends to supplement it. But again, you're then relying probably on 4th round pick Devontae Walker to be your 3rd receiver, or Tylan Wallace at that point. And it gets a little shaky for a team that not as Super Bowl contention where you're like Super Bowl at bust. So
I would think they would chase a defense, a pass rusher.
And see, I would do unspeakable things to have Max Crosby in a Ravens jersey. I think I've talked about that before. Yeah. I would love that. But you go sign Yannick Ngakoue off the practice squad, Kyle Van Noy's coming back around for a 2nd year, and we're chilling. Like we have this like New England type pass rush where you're like, there is not a single superstar here, right?
Yeah.
Matabike is decent. We have some pieces, but like it is just like 6 B-level guys, and one of them's going to get through. You can't block everybody, kind of thing. And like Ngakoue, I think had 4 pressures in his first game back in a Ravens jersey off a practice squad. And you're like, well, I don't know if I need to give up a lot to go get a premium edge rusher. At that point.
And they could be in the market for like, apparently the Panthers are going to trade Clowney. Like,
why wouldn't they
bring him back? What's the asking price at Mo? It would be outlandish if they got a 6th for Jadeveon Clowney.
You think so?
Oh, what do you think he's worth?
I don't know what his contract is. I mean, that is a massive part of what comes into it.
There's no way he signed more than a 1-year deal.
Yeah, I was like, I do think it was around $10 million, maybe $9.5 million. but I couldn't remember if it was 1 or 2. But that's the name. Obviously, I'd be perfectly okay with bringing Clowney back. I've seen reports of them trying to talk to the Browns about Zadarius Smith. He was an original Ravens 4th rounder, bringing him back around. Remember, he pump faked us in the offseason. There was reports he was coming back to Baltimore, and then he flipped and went back to Cleveland instead. Or maybe that was when he was leaving Green Bay the first time. I can't remember.
His cap hit this year is $6 million, and then if you cut him, it's $6 million to cut him at the end of the year.
Yeah, and he's a guy at $6 million I really wouldn't mind having. Truthfully, he's a talented edge rusher still. So, I would love for Baltimore to go get either of those guys. I need Zach Orr to figure out his defensive scheme. I think that's where we're getting lost on. Because you look at the Ravens secondary, Marlon Humphrey, Brandon Stevens, Marcus Williams, Kyle Hamilton, Eddie Jackson.
Yeah.
There is talent upon talent. But then I turn on Monday Night Football and I'm watching Roquan Smith lined up in man coverage against Chris Godwin in the slot. And I'm like, you're not going to tell me that this is a talent issue. That's not a fucking talent issue. That's Roquan Smith, not Fred Warner. Keep his ass in the fucking box.
It's we preach it all the time. I feel like we talk about it a lot, but coordinators matter so much.
A lot.
So very much. Especially when you have a coach who isn't a specialist in any area, or if you have a coach and you're looking for his opposite, right?
Yep.
You talk about guys having success, that Ravens defense was great last year with Mike McDonald. You take it out, and they've been above average, but it hasn't been what it was last year.
It's been purely run game reliant. If our run game wasn't the best in the game, we would be probably a bottom half defense. But I think we're probably sitting around the 12 to 16 spot because we have the best rush defense in the league. Going into Monday Night Football, we allowed 53 yards a game on the ground. That is
crazy.
That is the definition of making somebody one-dimensional. The only issue is I think they're 31st in pass defense, just ahead of the Washington Commanders, and I think that we were flip-flopping for a couple weeks there with the worst spot, which Mike McDonald's defense started that way through 5 to 6 weeks last year. Mike McDonald is a very experienced defensive mind. He turned it around. This is Zach Orr's first coordinator spot and really his first high-level coaching spot. He was a player, turned position coach. Now he's a DC. There's no high school experience. There's no college experience. Nothing. He was a linebackers coach for 4 or 5 years. Now he's a DC, and he's definitely getting exposed a little bit on the back end. So, the Ravens have some things to clean up. I don't think it's a ton of talent stuff. I would still trade my second rounder in a heartbeat to go get a difference maker because we also are just cursed in the second round outside of our most recent in Roger Rosengarten. But if I were to list you the last 6 second rounders for Baltimore, you'd be like, not a single one of those guys are difference makers. But I could list you our 4th rounders and you'd be like, there's 3 Pro Bowlers here in 6 years. That's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
The 4th round is our round. That's where we draft our studs at, not the second.
I'm trying to think who would be available. Chase Young.
Edgewise, I don't want Chase Young, respectfully.
I don't know who else would be out there.
Again, yeah, and everyone's like, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby. Never. It's never going to happen.
I don't think those are the guys that are going to get traded.
I just don't think they're going to be available. You don't get guys like that. Micah Parsons is the only guy in that realm that, to me, has a chance to get traded. It's purely money issues is why he would be available, but also it's Jerry Jones. He would rather spend 55% of his cap on Dak, CD, and Micah than trade him away for a king's ransom of an entire draft plus 4 first-round picks.
Yeah. Josh Ulley from the Patriots is an interesting name apparently out there.
I'll tell you one that just came to mind. This one I would also love, especially for a team that's struggling. I don't know if they're ready for a full reset. Josh Hines Allen in Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
Jacksonville decides to sell a couple pieces. That's a guy I would love to get. I think that's an A+ pass rusher.
Yeah,
but you're stuck between never being able to pay the price for one of those top 5 guys like Garrett or Crosby, or if TJ Watt were to ever fucking enter that conversation. You can't ever pay this price. They're never going to be available. Or you have the really old guys on really bad contracts, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa being the 2 best examples. And then you have a severe talent drop off to Clowney and the rest of those guys that'll be available, but at the same time, unless if you're giving up anything more than a fourth, you're not really seeing, like, you're not loving the value of that trade at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't know. There's not a lot of names out there that you're going to sit here and go, Calais Campbell maybe for Miami.
I would love to get Calais Campbell back. Still playing at a decently high level. He's an absolute tank in the run game. And again, another guy that would just be a great locker room guy. Like, that's a guy that I want my defensive lineman around. Yeah, I would love Calais Campbell back in Baltimore. If I could call up, if there was one trade I could make as a fan right now, I would tell you I would call the Miami Dolphins and I would give up a third or a fourth, wherever the price lands. And it's not, and I know your eyebrows are going up.
Dang.
Here. I want Odell and Calais Campbell back. I want them both back on my
team. Both back.
Yeah, like that's the type of ad I think Baltimore needs a receiver. I think D-Hop was the right fit. Baltimore needs a jump ball guy at this point. I'm okay with running Isaiah Likely there, but again, injuries happen. Zay or Bateman goes down, and Baltimore's going to be in a bit of trouble. I want a guy that's familiar in my offense. I would take Odell back in a heartbeat. Hasn't played a snap yet. There's not a lot of trade value from Miami. I know he would probably love to come back to Baltimore at this point. Fan base love it. Lamar would love it. Like, that's a win-win. And getting Calais Campbell back, yes, please.
I think like Calais Campbell's value is like a 6.
And
I think Odell's is probably in that same realm. So maybe if he gave up a fourth, you get both or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'll give him a fourth and a sixth, and you give me those 2 and a 7th 2 years from now. Like, whatever it takes. Like, that is a deal.
Like that.
That's the type of deal I think the Ravens need to make right now. Like, now again, if the Raiders are taking phone calls and I give up, my first this year, 2 firsts and a second, I don't know what it is, I would make the trade.
I think it's Khalil Mack to the Bears type.
Yeah.
For either Crosby or Garrett. But I just don't think either one of them get traded.
I don't think either of them get traded, and I for sure know the Browns are not going to trade away Myles Garrett and then play him twice a year. Like, the fact that Ravens fans are even talking about that as a possibility is a friggin' joke to me. Never in a million
not in
years.
Division, for sure.
No.
Yeah.
Not on a guy that gets paid to destroy your quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't know what kind of movement we'll see. I just don't know. There's a lot of bad teams with high-end talent, which is weird. Really weird to say out loud, but I don't know if you'll see any of them actually get moved just because of the price they'll have to pay.
Yeah. A lot of those guys that you think are going to move just don't have a lot of favorable contracts where you're stuck between the rock of, I don't want to give up a ton for this guy, but I also don't want to pay his contract. But you're going to have to do one or the other,
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah. We shall see. I'd be very curious if the Giants trade anybody. I don't know who they would trade. Do you trade Brian Burns? Try to get your second back or something?
God.
Like, you trade for a guy in the offseason, then you trade him right away.
Like, that would not, obviously, that just poorly reflects upon any free agents that want to go there in the future. I think it's something that you have to take into consideration there. But again, all the pieces that are worth moving there are guys that just signed extensions or just got there in the first place, or guys that have absolutely zero trade value. Like, they're in a really weird spot.
What if somebody offered a first to the Giants?
For
Brian Burns?
It's one of those things where I feel like on principle, I don't know if you can. I will tell you this as a Ravens fan, I'd give up my first this year for Brian Burns in a fucking heartbeat.
Yeah.
The Giants are like, hey, what about Brian Burns? And I'm like, what about Brian Burns? They're like, what about your first this year? Send it to the office. Send it to the league office. We'll do it right now. I don't care.
Does he have any sacks this year? I don't even know. I don't even know where he's fallen. Oh, he's got quite a few.
I feel like him, again, that is a front line where if you put some decent secondary help behind them, and again, the offense is a whole nother fucking question. To me, that is one of the best front sevens and definitely one of the best front fours in football when healthy. You have Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau getting after the quarterback. Yeah. That's a fucking 3-headed monster if there ever was one. I know Thibodeau still has a lot of unrealized potential there, but still, if you want to get the most out of your young edge rushers, you put as much fucking talent around them as possible, right? If you're forcing double teams on Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau is going to have some favorable matchups at that point. So,
I think he's been hurt most of the year. Has been the problem.
Yeah, I think he's out. I think he's out right now. Actually, I'm pretty sure. But again, I think when we were doing our record predictions, I had the Giants doing a little bit better than I thought they would, and it's because I kept thinking about the fucking wet dream that front seven is on their defensive side, and then
Pretty crazy.
And then remembering who the fuck is the quarterback for that team. So,
my boy Daniel Jones, you never know. This could be his.
Hey man, only quarterback to ever beat Lamar Jackson on the NFC. So
there you go. You never know.
He's on the schedule again this year. We'll see. Does Daniel Jones move to 2-0 against Lamar Jackson? That's the storyline for the Giants this year.
And the other crazy thing to say is we were really down on the Rams, but the Rams aren't out of it. They are very much vying for a playoff spot still.
Yeah, I was talking to my buddy about that. I was like, man, me and my buddy were so high on them and they've struggled. But at the same time, you're not expecting Kupp and Puka to go out at the same time. And you watch that Monday Night Football game and you're like, that's the Rams team I had at 11 wins. Like that's against the number one. Was that Minnesota that they played on Monday night, right?
Yeah, Minnesota, yeah.
Like that's the number one defensive football so far this year. Say what you want about the star talent or whatever around it. Statistically, that's the best defensive football. That's the Rams team that we both saw between 10 and 12 wins. So it'll obviously take a miracle for them to get there at this point with the 1-5 start. But with that division being wide open, I think the leaders at 4-3.
They have 2 teams. The Rams.
Yeah, and the Seahawks and the Niners are 4-3. The Cardinals are 3-4 too, right?
Everyone is 3-4 except the Seahawks. Seahawks are the only team in that division with a winning record of 4-3. What's
fucking
wild
insanity.
Yeah, but as far as playoff spot goes, Chicago's in it at 4-2, but they will not be there at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And that's no hate to Chicago. Chicago's next couple weeks are brutal. So they got Commanders, then they go Cardinals. They get a little bit of a break with the Patriots. But then they go Packers, Vikings, Lions, 49ers, Vikings, Lions, Seahawks, Packers is how they finish the season.
They're just stacked up against their own division, which is usually pretty damn good, and the best division in football.
Yeah.
In the NFC North.
It's wild how good that division is. Like,
yeah.
It went from, like, a couple years ago, you're like, it's kind of a snore division. Like, Aaron Rodgers just wins it every year or two. Yep. You have legit 4 really good teams, right?
Yeah.
Chicago is probably a year or two away from being a powerhouse. Like, I think Caleb Williams needs more time. But that's still a good team. Detroit has proven that they are a legitimate NFC contender year after year. I don't see that team really going anywhere. Who else am I missing? Oh, Green Bay. Green Bay strikes gold again. They find Jordan Love, their 3rd quarterback in a row. That's great. Like, it's so easy to replace legends, huh, Green Bay? You jerks.
Dick face.
And then Minnesota's just found magic. I don't know if Kevin O'Connell is just like a genius. Like, I think him and Brian Flores together have been a really good combo.
That's the perfect storm of Sam Darnold and Brian Flores have turned the Vikings around in a fucking heartbeat. Like,
he was
Sam Darnold.
Last year. Flores
was? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, that was the one thing that was it Zimmer that was there before O'Connell, right?
Yes, yep.
Yeah, like that was the thing with Zimmer that led to his downfall was he kind of coasted on having a really good defense through those, the Minnesota Miracle years with having Case Keenum as their starter out there, whoever the hell it was.
Teddy Bridgewater, Case Keenum, and then Kirk for a couple years.
Yeah, and then for some reason, despite like they had the same thing to me as like the Tampa Bay defense, where you're like everybody's just kind of getting old. Tampa Bay still performed. Minnesota fell off a fucking cliff. Their defense just disappeared, despite not losing really any talent, just getting older. And again, Zimmer being a defensive guy, all of a sudden they're just getting shredded, like a bottom 5 defense.
Yeah.
Get Brian Flores in there, Zimmer's gone. All of a sudden, even when losing some of those older pieces, which probably was to the benefit of them at this point, Flores has them playing as the best defense in football right now. And I think Kevin O'Connell is lucky that he had such a rough exit from Miami PR wise with how he handled the Tua quarterback situation, all those things, that he's probably going to have Flores for at least another year or two before somebody really makes a strong push to go get him. And he's also benefited by how many good head coaches there are available right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, who would have thought that coming out that there's a legitimate up until last week, right? And I'll get to that game in a second. Up until last week when the Lions beat them, that you're like, the Vikings have a legitimate claim to be the best team in this division through
They
6 weeks
did.
of football.
Yeah.
They were. And for anybody, like, I saw so many Lions and Vikings fans going at it on Twitter. You know, the Lions are like, haha, who's the best team in the division now? And they're like, Vikings fans are like, you've been good for fucking 2.5 years. Calm the fuck down. And I'm like, guys, I understand you hate each other. That was a fucking dogfight. If you haven't looked at the box score from that game, find a website that does, you know, like the lines for like, oh, this team had 300 rushing yards, this team had 50, so the lines all the way to the left. Every effing stat is right in the middle, like within 5 to 10 yards of each other. Like that game was a dogfight and it was about as evenly challenged as you could possibly had.
Yeah.
So, and that's not even talking about Green Bay, who might have the most talented quarterback in that division at this point, too, right? And then you have the number 1 pick and all the weapons they brought in. Like that division is the real fucking deal. As an AFC North guy, I take a lot of pride in always saying that we have the best division in football. It's not the case right now. Pretty confidently, it's not the case right now. That even if Cleveland was still ripping and rolling with Baker Mayfield at 4-3 right now, I still don't know if I'd say that they're better than what the NFC North has got going on right now.
You guys might have the best division in the AFC. Yeah, I think so.
I would say so.
Yeah.
It probably shouldn't be that way. It probably should be the AFC East, truthfully, with the Patriots kind of being your cellar dwellers and then 3 really competing playoff teams. But the Jets have disappointed, and the Dolphins have disappointed at this point, too.
The West is good, I'll say.
Yeah, the West is a year or 2 away from being damn effing good.
Yeah. Don't sleep on Mr. Unlimited, okay? Don't sell on my boy, okay?
I'm not sweating that man for a second.
We talked all that garbage on him, and then he went out and balled on us on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious. You texted me in the first half. And you're like, you should be happy right now. And I was like, I wasn't too worried about it, but I am. And then all of a sudden he fucking torched the Jets defense in the second half.
He said, I'm coming out with the danger witch right here. He said, it's going to be a little spicy, okay?
I had a danger witch at halftime. I'm feeling unlimited.
Unlimited. I had to try to explain to somebody why I was in Houston this last week, and I was explaining to somebody how one guy jokingly said he was a Russell Wilson fan, and then for like 6 months, maybe a year. I don't know how long we did it.
I kept it rolling after you left.
And we just said, Broncos country, let's ride. We said it every day for like over a year. And we hung up Russell Wilson pictures in his locker, and people were like, this is weird. I was like, it was weird. Looking back at it, it was very strange. It was a very strange thing to do.
Yeah, even after your break, even after you left, like every time I was the opening manager and I did a breakout, I always write "Let's Ride" in the bottom right corner. And every once in a while, I'd get there like, what the fuck is this? I'm like, long story. Don't worry about it.
It's not for you. Don't worry about it, okay?
Yeah. It's an inside joke with no one that works here anymore. So,
no, one guy still works there.
One guy's still there.
Yeah, and he all because he hated sports talk. He was like, you guys just talk about sports all the time. It annoyed him so much. He hated it.
Yeah.
For like hours on end, we would sit there and talk nothing but football.
Yep.
And I think it got so bad he had to split us up. He was like, you guys I can't have both these guys.
Can't have these guys fucking back here working together.
I can't. We gotta put one of them somewhere else. This isn't working.
Yeah, folks, if you love sports and you love the show, imagine that. You're waking up at 6 a.m., you got to go in for a little early morning truck shift. And then for the guys, again, it's always great because, you have us too, and then anyone else who wants to pitch in on the conversation. And we're just, Reed's kicking in. We're like, this is heaven right here. Like,
yeah.
I'm working 7 hours from like 6 to 2 today, and it felt like a breeze because I basically recorded a 6-hour podcast with him. So
yeah, we'd sit there and talk sports like the whole time.
Yep.
And it drove all the non-sports people hated it because it was Yeah, but don't work at a sporting goods store if you don't like to talk about sports, right? Like, it feels
Exactly.
like
I was like,
that should be part of the question, you know?
yeah, I agree. I was like, what do you think we're selling here? Right? We're staying open till 11 p.m. after a Chiefs Super Bowl win, and you don't want me to talk about football? You're working at the wrong place.
Yeah, you're in the wrong building here. But all right, let's jump into the bets of the week. If you or anyone you know is struggling with a gambling addiction, contact the Problem Gambling Helpline at 800-522-4700. Professionals are available 24 hours a day to take your call. Help is available at no cost to the problem gambler or their concerned others. I keep up my little bit of a winning streak here. Went 2-1 last week. Lions plus 1.5 versus the Vikings hit. Eagles -3 versus the Giants, very well hit. Falcons -3 versus the Seahawks was my only dud. I was on the wrong side of a Falcons pick. Who would have guessed that? So
Yeah. Never would have thought it. Definitely won't bite him again in the future. I also had a little bounce back 2-1 week myself last week. I sorely needed it, but I need you to have a bad week to really catch up. Cleveland and Cincinnati, the old AFC North under cashed for me at 41.5. Baltimore and Tampa Bay over 49.5. Thank goodness. Why do I always forget his name? Todd Bowles just refused to die in that game. I think that one was pretty well covered in the third quarter, but he decided to sell Chris Godwin's ankle up the river to make it a 5-point game with 40 seconds left. So that was fun. And then my only miss last week, the Jets -1.5 versus Pittsburgh. Again, we are just talking about it. Mr. Unlimited had to come in and ruin my 3-0 week after the horrible first half he had. But puts me at an overall 8-10 on the year. So respectable, but we've got some work to do.
yeah. This week I like Bills -3 versus the Seahawks. Road dogs are interesting, but this year they've been hitting. Like, the better
Yeah.
team is just winning. Seattle has no run defense, and Buffalo loves to run the football this year. So I really like that pick there. Falcons -2.5 versus the Bucks. I'm back on the Falcons, man. I'm gonna ride them no matter how it goes.
Never left.
Tampa Bay has nobody. Baker Mayfield's going to play, but Mike Evans is out. Chris Godwin is out. Jalen McMillan is like their number one option right now.
He's thrown to Cade Otton quite a bit this week.
Yeah, which is concerning. And then you look at the other side of the football, and the Falcons, man, they're just loaded. So if they don't win this game, I'm going to call Kirko Chains myself and have a real strict conversation with him. And we're going to have to figure some stuff out here.
Yeah, I will. And the last thing to add to that, and I said this to you earlier before we started recording, without an offensive collapse where Atlanta just doesn't show up, Baker Mayfield wins his football games, we're going to have to start having some real serious conversations about top 5 lists and top 10 lists because it was a good year last year. We're trying to see if there's going to be some consistency to it. This is one of those games where this is a statement made. They go out there and put up 30 points without his top 2 guys on the outside. We're going to have to fucking have some conversations.
Yeah. I meant to talk about it earlier, but Jared Goff for MVP is like my favorite right now.
Yeah.
Only because John Gruden on TikTok has just made me.
What is Best TikTok account out right now.
Oh, yeah. Got me feeling nicey.
Got me feeling real nice.
Him talking about Jared Goff has just made me believe he's an MVP candidate, whether he is or not. So
I think he is. Like, truthfully, he's in the conversation. I don't think he's my front runner for obvious reasons for me, but he's definitely in the conversation right now.
Yeah, I think he's got to be a top 5 guy. Like, as crazy.
I would say top 3. I would.
Yeah.
I'd say he's probably 3rd. That's where I'd put him.
I don't know. He's got me feeling nicey. So
he's got me feeling real. 18 for 18. I couldn't even do that pregame warm-ups.
Yeah. It's just
good
so
shit.
Good. Him talking about Jahmyr Gibbs this week. He was like, man, that guy is special. 132 yards on the ground. I was like, I don't even think he played that well, to be honest with you. But whatever. Big fan of it. My last pick, Broncos -10.5 versus the Panthers. Bryce Young is going to go out there. This is my least confident pick. I really like one of Owen's picks a lot. I wish I could have had it, but it's the way it goes sometimes. You're second to the script, you don't get all the best bets. So, but I do like the Broncos. 10.5 is a lot. They don't score a lot as an offense, but Carolina's defense is so bad. I'm hoping this might be Bo Nix's coming out game. So
I think with how good their defense is really where this comes in. If they could put up 30, I think this covers. Like I don't see Bryce Young scoring on getting 3 touchdown drives against the no-fly zone. They got rocketed in Pittsburgh right now, or Pittsburgh in Denver. I don't know how I let you have Bills Seahawks. I think that's probably bet of the week. Like it's a little bit of a trap spot on the road for Buffalo, but
maybe, yeah.
the Seattle's O-line has just been so bad that I like that pick a lot. I can't believe I let that slip to you. But nonetheless, into my 3 picks for the week, I have Chicago minus 2.5 versus Washington. This is the one that Tim wanted. I originally had this at 3. It's went down 0.5 point in the last 8 to 10 hours.
I don't know why.
I don't know why either. I like it a lot at 2.5. Obviously, even more than I did at 3. This bet really centers a lot around. I know the Commanders' secondary is not that good. That is by far and away the weakest spot on their team overall, I think. So I'm betting on Caleb Williams being able to kind of pick them apart, get up and down the field. And also Jaden Daniels, I don't think there's been an official decision yet whether he plays or not. If he does, I see the same thing that I saw when he went down last week, and also what I saw from Anthony Richardson when he went down early in the year. For some reason, they both have this really bad habit of like taking a big hit, being a little banged up, but playing through it, and then 4 plays later, just going and taking another big hit in the exact same effing spot to get knocked out of the game. So even if Daniels plays, I don't know if he plays the whole game. Give me Chicago minus 2.5. I'm going to break my mold here. Known for the AFC North unders, I'm going to go with Baltimore and Cleveland over 45.5. And it's a bit of a higher line. You'll see me hit on a lot of like 38.5s under for the AFC North. I like Baltimore minus 8.5, but new play caller, new quarterback. There's some uncertainty there with what's going to happen. Also, Marlon Humphrey's probably going to be out, so the Ravens secondary hasn't been great, but it gets a little bit weaker. So I think Cleveland's going to get up and down the field, but I see no way in hell that Lamar Jackson loses this game. You're going to see a lot of shades of what we saw on Monday night versus Tampa Bay. Both teams getting up and down the field. I would not be surprised to see Baltimore put up 40 by themselves in this game. Should be a pretty easy cover at 45.5. My last one, Detroit and Tennessee over 44.5. This is another one where I think one team is probably going to score 35 to 40 of this line. And I think we'll see at least a touchdown from Will Levis and the Titans in this game. And if not, I mean, we saw 44 go up on Dallas when Detroit played them last. So obviously there's not as much of a visceral disdain for the Titans as there is for the Dallas Cowboys, but I think Detroit should get this done well. I really don't mind them at minus 11.5 either, but in the NFL with those double-digit lines, it just gets scary because you go up 2 touchdowns, somebody kicks a field goal, you only win by 11, bet doesn't cash. Dan Cable's thinking it's a damn good win, and you're sitting there out, $50 from your parlay because that field goal cashed with a minute left and it meant absolutely nothing. So definitely some interesting lines out there. Definitely some trap ones as well. So bet with caution. My last thing, and I tweeted this during the game, if you put money on Spencer Rattler versus Bo Nix showdown on Thursday Night Football, Saints and Broncos, call that number immediately. You need help because that is not a game you should ever place U.S. currency on without admitting yourself to some mental help afterwards. So that's the bets of the week. There's some trade talk for you. We might have some midseason awards. I haven't talked about that off camera yet. Might need to get some midseason awards in. Maybe a trade prediction or two, some realistic ones. Mine's just going to be the Ravens giving up a 6th-round pick for Max Crosby. That's my hot deal of the week. But
like it.
Totally reasonable. By the way, I just saw a tweet that Mark Davis, the owner of the Raiders, sent an email to ESPN this weekend and said, we're not trading Max Crosby before or after the trade deadline. Stop asking. So
I like it.
There it is, folks. Max Crosby's not going anywhere. Myles Garrett's probably not going anywhere, but we will have some of those influential trades. It's just not going to be your 27-year-old superstars. Surprise, surprise. So that's going to do it for the Week 7 episode of Red Zone Talk. Make sure you guys tapped into all the social medias. I've been real bad about posting on anything this year. Still trying to figure out a lot of my new stuff that I'm doing in Texas and managing my time and whatnot. But make sure you're tapped into all those things. Hopefully I'll get them rolling here eventually. But yeah, that's going to do it. You got anything else for this people before we get out of here?
No, nothing.
All right. Well, that'll do it, folks. We'll see you next week for week 8. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you then.